Kathy. Yes. Hi, everybody out there in virtual land. Good to see you too. Hi, everybody here in real land. It's good to see you again. It's good to see you, Amy, really.
Yeah.
Well, since it is that month of November, you've been hearing all about it, of course, Home of Truth's theme. It's all about gratitude. And I think being thankful can be a very easy spiritual practice, right? I mean, the great Christian mystic Meister Eckhart even said, if the only prayer you ever say is thank you, it would be enough. And that's one side of it. But then another Christian saint, St. Paul, set a standard for gratitude a few thousand years ago that put a whole new spin to it. Because he said, in all things, give thanks. Now take just a minute and think about that one syllable word, all. The good, the bad, and the ugly, the sweet and sour. When I think about it that way, I think this is a very deep spiritual practice and one that maybe isn't always so easy to do. And so that's what led to my falling forward talk today, because we're going to talk about failure. Failure. How we fall. How we fail. How we feel about failing. And how do we recover from failure? And why the heck should we give thanks when we do a pratfall into the mud of an unpleasant experience? Well, failure is a universal experience. And I will back that up by giving you two illustrious examples of mighty failures. The first one is from someone that we all consider to be an extraordinarily accomplished and successful scientist and inventor, and that is Thomas Edison. Now, here's an interesting thing. Edison estimated that he made 1,000 failed attempts before he created a working light bulb.
Wow.
1,000. My dear God. Then C.S. Lewis, who wrote The Chronicles of Narnia, that incredible, now iconic set of books about a metaphysical land, quote, for children. No, not really. It is world famous global phenomenon, and he had it rejected 800 times before it was published. 800 rejection letters. I mean, you could paper the room with it. And then there are other smaller kinds of rejection and failure, and I'll cite myself. I consistently failed to attain a B in algebra in high school and in geometry. I couldn't make that B. And because of that, I did not get to be the valedictorian of my class. And as you can see, it destroyed my life forever. So yeah, failure comes in all sizes, shapes, colors, and levels of significance, but come it does. So yes, it's a universal experience. Exactly. But is it a bad experience? I'm going to start talking about that by using a Shakespearean line from Hamlet, one that you all, I'm sure, know. There is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. Now, as we think about that, I would like you to hold in the back of your mind as well, in all things, give thanks. So in talking about failure, I'm going to cover 3 points that I hope will give you some guideposts or a roadmap to bring you into gratitude. And they are, number 1, perspective. Number 2, redirection, and number 3, perseverance. So we'll start with perspective, of course. Nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. I know this to be true. Now, Pema Chodron, I don't know if it's Pema or Pema Chodron, the Zen Buddhist monk. Does anybody know? Pema Chodron. Okay. She's written many really wonderful books in the last couple of decades. And she famously said, bad karma is our big chance. Now, how's that for perspective? Bad karma is our big chance. You know, we all experience success and failure many times and in many ways. I mean, in our professional work for sure, in our relationships too, in our creative attempts, in our domestic chores. And I cite my early pot roasts as examples. Mm-hmm. And any of our attempts to learn a new skill. Right? Now, when we are wildly successful, it feels great, doesn't it? Yeah. And the danger of being wildly successful is that it goes to one's head. Yeah. Now, my dad, who owned an advertising agency when I was in high school and being a cheerleader, he used to tell me, don't believe your own press. In other words, don't let it go to your head. Right? So the lesson in success is not to let that success get to us. And then when we fail spectacularly, it feels awful. Mm-hmm. No doubt about it. But just as we are wise to not let success consume our egos, we would be wise to not let our failures consume our hearts. The perspective we choose when we fall makes all the difference between wearing sackcloth and ashes and saying, I'm a loser, and getting up, dusting ourselves off time after time, and trying again. Now, to be truthful, I've experimented with both perspectives in my life over the years as a corporate executive, a strategic consultant, a writer, a minister, a mother, a wife, a friend. And I know from experience that falling forward is definitely the way to go. What I have found is that failure doesn't necessarily mean that my idea was flawed or invalid. Maybe sometimes, but not always. Failure doesn't necessarily mean that I didn't give my best when it came to implementing something. I mean, frankly, poop happens. We all know that, right? Yeah. I mean, poop I have no control over. Poop that somebody throws into my very smoothly working gears. And if you've worked with people in any way, shape, or form, you know that happens. Okay? And make no mistake, failure pinches hard. And as a minister of religious science, a New Thought philosophy, I'm very clear that I think it's important that we acknowledge our emotional reactions to hurtful things. Why should we like failing at something that we invest our time, our energy, and our heart into? Well, there are reasons. On the other hand, and at the same time, what I also know is that I can make the unpleasant experience and the failure grist for the mill of my soul. Right? It's all about that little issue called perspective. In my spiritual philosophy, religious science, we have a little tagline that says, change your thinking, change your life. And that is so true, particularly when it comes to failure. Falling forward is applying this belief to the tumble that we just took, and then ending up back on our feet and ready to go again. I will be waiting and I will catch you. One of the hardest things I learned when I was in the corporate world before becoming a minister was how to graciously accept constructive criticism. Thank God I did, though. Two things happened whenever this situation occurred. One, I learned where I went wrong and how to correct it. And then two, the person offering me this constructive criticism was invariably grateful that I didn't throw a snit fit and reject their advice and say, I was right, you're wrong. Apparently that happened a lot in the office in those days. I didn't know. But frankly, it was a win-win situation. I left those conversations with a greater understanding of what I needed to do to be successful. And I gained the confidence and the support of a colleague. And that was usually somebody who is superior in rank to me and could either nurture my career or crush it. So, yeah. Perspective is important. So let's move on to the second talking point, and that is redirection. Now, in the old days, before we had the miracle of GPS, upon which my whole life depends, did you ever take a ride or a trip with someone who would not stop to ask for directions, regardless of how clear it was? You were completely lost. Yeah. No. I know where I'm going. I know where I'm going. It was so frustrating to be with someone like that. So sometimes I really just felt like reaching over and grabbing the wheel. And I think sometimes God must have felt that way about me when I just didn't feel like changing my direction. No. This is the way I'm going. Yeah. I mean, whether it be in our professional lives or our personal lives, course corrections are necessary. And with every course correction we take, every course correction that we don't take and it trips us up because we refuse to acknowledge that we're lost, we learn something valuable. Failure points to the possibility that there is something more, something better ahead of us. Failure points to the possibility of something other. And so let's put a little pin in that thought and then draw a little thread from that thought to that other one. In all things, give thanks. Now, having chosen to look at our failures in an open way, we can reevaluate whatever is ours to do. Right? And we can come back stronger, more informed, more resilient, more ready to take the right steps. We have gained. We have not lost. Frankly, the second time around, we're better equipped to tackle the problem. And we're even better equipped the third time and the fourth. Time after time. It works that way. Frankly, in my experience, winners aren't afraid of losing, but losers are. When I redirect my energy from looking back to how I failed, to forward, to where do I go now, my life becomes bigger in all kinds of ways. At home in my office, I have this beautiful leather box that you put documents in. That was a gift from many years ago. And on the top of it is carved this saying from Emerson: do not go where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail. Now, over the years, because I've had that box for a long time, I know that I have subconsciously, unconsciously registered this Emersonian piece of advice probably thousands of times. And here's the thing I have learned. When I go metaphysically where there is no path, I stumble through high weeds, I trip over hidden roots, I fall into boggy puddles, and I lose my boots. In other words, it often feels like I made a big mistake when I left the path. I'm a failure, and I'm tired, I am dirty, I'm bootless, and I'm lost. Redirection can be tough. But then I keep thinking, and this is me, but I'm going to offer it to you. Isn't being a trailblazer more exciting than following the well-worn path of everybody else? T.S. Eliot said, only those who risk going too far can possibly find out how far they can go. And there's that issue of both perspective and redirection all at the same time. So yes, while redirecting can be tough, as I said, when I turn my face forward, instead of looking back, my life gets bigger. I see a vista of more opportunities ahead of me, while behind me, there's only closed doors. So, one last thing about redirecting. I think redirecting has a surprising side effect of creating wonder in my soul. The everyday wonder of knowing that I can do more, I can do better, I can go farther, and I can feel better about myself than I would have if I had done it the easy way. Redirection is crucial. Yeah. So let's talk to that third point now, which is perseverance. Winston Churchill said that success is not final and failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Success is not final and failure is not fatal. Now, if you're here today or even at home watching this, I suspect that you are a spiritual seeker. And you know that the path to spiritual growth is simply this: fall down, get up. Fall down, get up. Fall down, get up. Our willingness to forgive ourselves and our failures and to try once more, that is what builds faith. That's a spiritual practice. Sometimes the lesson of failure is not to make success certain, but to show us how to fail. Truly, there are ways to fall down with grace and humility, like taking constructive criticism, for example, and with gratitude instead of resistance. In all things, give thanks, even when the pill tastes bitter in the moment. Persistence, patience, the courage to continue. Think of Thomas Edison and his 1,000 non-working light bulbs, and C.S. Lewis papering his office with rejection letters for his masterpiece. Both of those men must have had some serious dark night of the soul moments, don't you think? Yeah. And I can easily identify with that. But I want to as easily identify with their incredible perseverance. They must have kept saying to themselves, yeah, but I wonder if, maybe, all those things. You know, and I talked about this a little bit earlier, if and when we have a string of successes following in our wake, I think we tend to do a very human thing. And that is assume it's always going to be that way. We stop wondering. We stop being open to hearing something new, something better, something wonder-filled. And there's a phrase for this. It's called resting on one's laurels. Now, that phrase comes from ancient Greece, when the winner of the origin of the Olympic Games, this started way back then, they would be crowned with a wreath of entwined laurels as a sign of honor. So to win the laurels was a big deal. Right? To rest on one's laurels, then, is to live off one's reputation for having once done something good, right? and to refrain from any further effort to see more what could be done. I mean, how dreary that person would be who rested on their laurels. Every conversation would begin with, "Oh yeah, back in 582 when I won the music contest and I did those athletic games." It's like, all right, enough, heard it. And my dad, again, who was a croupier in a gambling casino before he was an advertising executive, interesting man, always said that the only thing worse than a sore loser was a boastful winner. Winners and losers, two sides of the same coin. It all comes down to perspective, redirection, and perseverance, and finally, gratitude. I think you'll agree with me, I hope, when I claim that we share more admiration for the athlete, the student, the worker, anyone who falls forward again and again, because we recognize the strength of character and the integrity of spirit in those people. And those qualities mean more than any temporal success, which is never permanent anyway. I am buoyed up by knowing that great minds and great talents, like Edison and C.S. Lewis, didn't give up. Our lives would have been poorer if they had. And I think your life would be poorer too if you did not persevere after a few failures. Failure is simply success in progress. So perspective, redirection, perseverance, and gratitude for all of it. So may you fall often and spectacularly, and may you fall forward into your greatest yet to be. Namaste.